O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom, know it with certainty, and accomplish it perfectly, for the glory and honor of thy name, and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory, and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabeg, Dakota Oete, Dene Sulene, and Neothog nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Please be seated. Routine proceedings. Introduction of bills. Committee reports. Tabling of reports. Ministerial statements. The Honourable Minister of Sport, Culture, Heritage and Tourism.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to recognize and celebrate Sikh Heritage Month and Vaisakhi in Manitoba. Manitoba is a beautifully diverse province, home to people of many different cultural backgrounds and faiths. The Sikh community is one of these dynamic, active, and engaged communities which has enriched all of Manitoba for generations. Historically, the Sikh community recognizes April as a significant month for their faith. It features the celebration of Vaisakhi and Khalsa Day, commemorating the birth of the Khalsa. These observances honor the core principles of equality, selfless service, and social justice, values that resonate deeply with all Canadians. Since 2022, Manitoba has also commemorated Turban Day on April 13th as part of Sikh Heritage Month. The turban remains an important outward expression of Sikh faith and identity. I am honored to recognize my friend and colleague, the MLA for Burroughs, the province's first turbaned MLA to sit in this esteemed chamber, and the MLA who introduced this legislation. For over 100 years, Sikhs have called Manitoba home. They served in the Canadian Army during World War I, at a time when they would not have been offered citizenship due to their Sikh identity. In the succeeding years, generations of Sikh Manitobans have continued to embody the core commitment to seva, or service, creating businesses, working in education, healthcare, manufacturing, and other industries, all while raising families and building strong connections in communities all across Manitoba. Honourable Speaker, cultural diversity is a driving force of development and progress, not only with respect to innovation and economic growth, but also as a means of leading a more fulfilling intellectual, emotional, moral, and spiritual life. In Manitoba, we are fortunate that we can build meaningful connections with people from diverse cultures and faiths, celebrating that we are really one Manitoba. By celebrating April as Sikh Heritage Month in Manitoba, we bring attention to the diverse history of our province, the contributions of all those who steered its development, and why the values of service, equality, fairness, and justice are intrinsically important to our identity and progress. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member for Agassiz.
I rise today to celebrate Sikh Heritage Month, as well as recognize the 4th annual Turban Day here in Manitoba. Sikh heritage is a living, growing story in Manitoba. Every year, we see more Sikh Manitobans starting businesses, becoming teachers, working in healthcare, and doing seva in our communities. Over time, there is more to be proud of, more progress made, and more stories to share. Today in the Eastern Hemisphere and tomorrow in Canada, Sikhs and Punjabis will be celebrating Vaisakhi. It was on this day in 1699 that the practice of wearing the turban was formalized as a pillar of the Sikh faith and a symbol of protecting the innocent from religious persecution. Centuries onward, we see the same value of courage and strength live in the Sikh diaspora here in Manitoba. We've seen through organizations like Khalsa Aid that Sikh community will go above and beyond to help Manitobans and people across the world in their greatest time of need. Staying true to the warrior spirit, Sikhs have also dedicated a century of service in our Canadian military. We now know of at least 2 Sikhs from Winnipeg who answered the call of duty during World War I. We thank them for their sacrifice, and we thank all Sikh Manitobans who've contributed to the collective prosperity of our great province here in Manitoba. I encourage all Manitobans to take part in Sikh Heritage Month activities throughout April and learn more about Sikh history and traditions. Thank you and happy Vaisakhi. Sorry.
Member statements. Member for Tuxedo.
Honorable Speaker, today it is my absolute honor to recognize an outstanding young leader from Tuxedo, Mia Daniluk. Mia is a 2026 recipient of the prestigious Vimy Pilgrimage Award, an honor given to just 20 youth across Canada. This award recognizes academic excellence, a deep commitment to history, and a dedication to honoring those who served in the First World War. Through this opportunity, Mia traveled to France and Belgium to study historic sites and help ensure the stories of our veterans are never forgotten. This award highlights how remarkable Mia is. Her leadership abilities and commitment to serve others is impressive. She is actively involved in her school and community, supports her peers, and helps create inclusive and welcoming spaces. She demonstrates maturity, compassion, and a strong sense of responsibility well beyond her years. Following her Vimy pilgrimage, Mia shared that she returned home with a deeper appreciation of the sacrifices made by Canadians who served and those who lost their lives. She described the experience as life-changing and strengthening her commitment to remembrance and to promoting peace for future generations. Honorable Speaker, Mia represents the very best of our next generation. She shows us that leadership is not defined by age, but by character, curiosity, and a willingness to serve others. I know she will continue to do great things. This is only the beginning. So please join me in congratulating Mia Daniluk on this incredible achievement and in wishing her a continued success. Thank you.
Member for Portage La Prairie.
Thank you. I recently attended the unveiling of former Premier Brian Pallister's portrait here in the Legislature. It was a moment to reflect on leadership and on foresight. Premier Pallister understood that Manitoba needed serious infrastructure investment. He knew communities like Portage La Prairie and Neepawa had long outgrown their facilities, and he acted, moving forward with new hospitals and major upgrades across the province. He also knew if these projects were not started before the government left office, they might never get done under the NDP. With some facilities like the one in Portage La Prairie already far exceeding its lifespan, he knew further delay would only make things worse. And now Manitobans are seeing just that. The NDP likes to complain about the actions of the former PC government, and yet it is only because of the leadership of Premier Pallister that we have new and improved facilities for staff and patients. Make no mistakes, this facility is 100% complete, and staff are trained and ready to go. The same staff who are hanging on by a thread, trying to care for patients in hazardous conditions, and now being forced to work in an unsafe building for another 6 months. While the NDP points fingers at the past, their record over the past 2.5 years has only made healthcare continually worse. Without the actions of Premier Pallister, we would be facing an even deeper crisis today. That is the difference that leadership makes. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Deputy Honour Speaker. I rise today to recognize a remarkable milestone in the Parkland region, the 125th anniversary of the Dauphin General Hospital. Since its beginning in 1900, when care was first provided by Dr. Bottomley home during a typhoid epidemic, the hospital has stood as a pillar of compassion and service. By 1901, the formal charter place, Dauphin General Hospital, opens its doors and began a legacy of care that continues this day. Over the past 125 years, the hospital has grown alongside the community it serves, from the modest facility treating just over 200 patients in the early years, to a modern healthcare center providing essential services. Expansions in 1928, 1935, and the redevelopment in 1985, along with investments in the diagnostic services, emergency care, and specialized units, reflect a strong commitment in the meeting of the region's needs. A major milestone in this journey came in 1999, when the installation of the hospital CT scanner enhanced the diagnostic care for the region. Over the past 3 decades, key developments have included the addition of the Dauphin Personal Care Home, the Community Health Building, and expanding of the Dauphin Health Services. This special anniversary celebrates not only infrastructure, but the dedicated healthcare professionals, staff, volunteers, and community members who care and have shaped the generations. I also acknowledge local historian Al Gray, whose research helps preserve the hospital's history. Reflecting on 125 years of care, we look ahead in confidence, knowing Dauphin Regional Health Centre will remain a cornerstone of health and the well-being for the Parkland region. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Morden-Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm honoured to rise today to speak about an event I attended on Saturday that truly captures the spirit of our community, Power of the Purse. Held annually in Morden, this event is more than just a fundraiser. It's a celebration of women coming together to uplift each other and create lasting change in the lives of women and children in our region. We were all encouraged to wear black and pink to the event to symbolize solidarity and support of what we were doing that day. It was inspiring to be in a room filled with such incredible women, all contributing in their own way to bettering our community. At Power of the Purse, each woman designates $100 to one or more of 3 organizations being supported at the brunch that day. This generosity is a testament to the power that we hold as women when we unite for a common cause. This year, the funds raised will support 3 amazing organizations: Genesis House, which will be using the donations to create a beautiful backyard space for women at the shelter; the Discovery Trails School Parent Advisory, which is raising funds for a play structure for children; and the Care and Share School Lunch Program, ensuring that more children have access to nutritious meals at school. The generosity, compassion, and dedication on display at the brunch on Saturday were humbling. The women who attended the Power of the Purse are not only raising money, they are raising hopes, voices, and ensuring that no one in need is forgotten. On behalf of all those women impacted, I want to express my deepest gratitude to each one of them. that were there that day, to the sponsors, the volunteers, and everyone in attendance who makes this event possible. Together, we are building a community where women and children are supported, celebrated, and empowered. Thank you to the Morden Foundation for hosting this event and for all that you do for our community. I ask my colleagues in the chamber to rise in thanking those that are joining us online today.
The Honourable Member for Burrows.
ਮਾਣਯੋਗ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਸਿੱਖ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਕੇਵਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਹਿਰਾਵੇ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਸਗੋਂ ਇਹ ਬਰਾਬਰੀ, ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਅਤੇ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਵਿਸ਼ਵਾਸ ਦਾ ਚਿੰਨ੍ਹ ਹੈ। ਇੱਕ ਐਸਾ ਤਾਜ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਾਣ ਨਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਨਾਲ ਪਹਿਨਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਟਰਬਨ ਡੇ ਬਿੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਸ ਕਰਨ ਉਪਰੰਤ 13 ਅਪ੍ਰੈਲ ਨੂੰ ਅਧਿਕਾਰਤ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਦਿਹਾੜੇ ਵਜੋਂ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੇ ਮੈਨੀਟੋਬਾ ਵਿਧਾਨ ਸਭਾ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਮੁਲਕ ਅੰਦਰ ਇੱਕ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਨਾਂ ਕਮਾਇਆ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਵਿਧਾਨ ਸਭਾ ਅੰਦਰ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਦਸਤਾਰਧਾਰੀ MLA ਵਜੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਮਹੱਤਵਪੂਰਨ ਸਨਮਾਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਮੁੱਚੇ ਮੈਨੀਟੋਬਾ ਦਾ ਤਹਿ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਕਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰ ਹਾਂ। ਸਾਡੇ ਮਾਣਮੱਤੇ ਦਸਤਾਰਧਾਰੀ ਮੈਨੀਟੋਬਾ ਵਾਸੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਮਾਜ ਦੀ ਬਿਹਤਰੀ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਮੁੱਲਾ ਯੋਗਦਾਨ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਿੱਤ ਦਿਨ ਨਸਲੀ ਨਫ਼ਰਤ ਦਾ ਸਾਹਮਣਾ ਵੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਹਾਲੇ ਲੰਘੇ ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਹੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਸਟਾਫ ਨੇ ਜਦ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਦਿਹਾੜੇ ਦਾ ਪੋਸਟਰ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ 'ਤੇ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਤਾਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਹੀ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਲੱਚਰ ਇਸ਼ਾਰਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਸਲਵਾਦੀ ਨੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਬੇਟੇ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਕਲਿੱਪ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਮੂਲ ਦੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਫ਼ਰਤੀ ਭੜਾਸ ਕੱਢਣ ਲਈ ਵਰਤੀ। ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਉਸ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੇਰਾ ਬੇਟਾ ਜੈਟਸ ਦੀ ਗੇਮ ਦੇ ਮੌਕੇ ਫਖਰ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੀ ਪੇਸ਼ਕਾਰੀ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ। ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਸੇ ਨਾ ਪੱਖੀ ਵਤੀਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਚੱਲਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਣੀ ਜੋ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਥੜਕਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਨਫ਼ਰਤ ਦੇ ਇਜ਼ਹਾਰ ਵਿਰੁੱਧ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਚੁੱਕਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਜੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਰਲ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਸਰਬ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਸਮਾਜ ਸਿਰਜਣ ਲਈ ਵਚਨਬੱਧ ਰਹੀਏ। ਅਸੀਂ ਭਾਂਤ ਸੁਭਾਂਤ ਦੇ ਭਾਈਚਾਰਿਆਂ ਵਿਚਾਲੇ ਸਾਂਝ ਦੀਆਂ ਤੰਦਾਂ ਬੁਣਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਸੱਚ ਤੇ ਸੁਲਹ ਸਫਾਈ ਦੀ ਭਾਵਨਾ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਣਾਇਆ ਇੱਕ ਆਲਾ ਸਮਾਜ ਸਿਰਜਣ ਦੇ ਅਣਥੱਕ ਯਤਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ। ਇਸ ਲਈ ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਸਹਿਕਰਮੀ ਰੋਟੰਡਾ ਵਿਖੇ ਅੱਜ ਸ਼ਾਮ 5 ਵਜੇ ਚੌਥੇ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਦਿਹਾੜੇ ਦੇ ਸਰਕਾਰੀ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਦੀ ਪੇਸ਼ਕਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਲੈ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਸ ਦਾ ਥੀਮ ਹੈ ਸੱਭਿਆਚਾਰਕ ਸਾਂਝ ਭੈਲੀ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਮੇਲ ਜੋਲ ਦੀ ਮੁੜ ਸਥਾਪਤੀ। ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਸਮਾਗਮ ਲਈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਲੀ ਸੱਦਾ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਬਹੁਭਾਂਤੀ ਸੱਭਿਆਚਾਰਕ ਪਹਿਰਾਵੇ ਪਹਿਨ ਕੇ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋਈਏ ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਿਰਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਸਜਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਅਨੁਭਵ ਲਈਏ ਅਤੇ ਰਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਜਸ਼ਨ ਮਨਾਈਏ। ਦਸਤਾਰ ਦਿਹਾੜਾ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ, ਵਿਸਾਖੀ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਅਤੇ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਸਾਜਨਾ ਦਿਵਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧਾਈਆਂ।
Before moving on, I'd like to draw the attention of all honourable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Mahak Kosa, Gurjaspel Bala, Raymond Melnick, Phileas Mackenzie, Patricia Martinez, Raul Singh, Pranbur Singh, Mangal Singh Brar, Amarjeet Kaur, who are guests of the Honourable Member for Burrows, and on behalf of all honourable members, we welcome you here today. I would also like to draw the attention of all honourable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Mia Daniluk, Teresa Van Dien, David Daniluk, Maximilian Daniluk, Kathy Daniluk, Wayne Maston, David Daniluk Sr., Sheila Anderson, Lieutenant Susan Chadwick, Commanding Officer 49 Royal Canadian Sea Cadet Corps, JT Cornwall, VC, Lieutenant Lauren Palmquist, Civilian Officer 49 Royal Canadian Sea Cadet Corps, JT Cornwall, VC, Lieutenant J.P. Ruse, Regional Training Officer, Regional Cadet Support Unit, Northwest, Cadets and Junior Canadian Rangers Group, Vice Chief of Defence Staff, Canadian Armed Forces, who are guests of the Honourable Member for Tuxedo, and we welcome you all here today. And now I would draw all honourable members' attention to the public gallery, where we have seated from Henry G. Izett Middle School 75 grade 6 students under the direction of Michelle Menzies. This group is located in the constituency of the honourable member for Fort White, and we welcome you all here today. Oral questions. The honourable member for La Vérendrye.
Honourable Speaker, it's unfortunate, but life just keeps getting more expensive under this Premier and his failed NDP government. And it's because our economy is one of the weakest now in Canada, with a meagre 1.1 GDP growth. In Alberta and Saskatchewan, we see booming economies, while under this Premier, we see businesses, jobs, and investment dollars fleeing the province. A strong economy is essential to an affordable cost of living for families. When will this Premier get serious about growing Manitoba's economy?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, first I want to acknowledge our wonderful colleague for the boroughs for making history today in the chamber with that member statement. You guys are really wonderful. He sets such a wonderful example for Manitobans, and there's a number of students in the gallery here today. I know that we are not to interact with them, but I hope that they see, the representation and the history being made. I hope that they see themselves reflected in this chamber. That there are jobs in our communities for them as elected officials that they can aspire to and step into in their futures. I will answer the member opposite's question. I wish he wouldn't be so pessimistic. I'm going to share some great news in my response next.
The honourable member for La Vérendrye on a supplementary question.
Well, Honourable Speaker, we welcome good economic news, and it's because we should have. Manitoba shares many of the same benefits as our neighbours. We are rich in resources and critical minerals, nickel, lithium, copper, energy resources that are essential for building a modern economy. And we have it all here in Manitoba. We have what the world wants. Unfortunately, we also have this Premier who wants to leave those minerals in the same place as we can find his economic numbers, and that's in the ground. Critical minerals are essential to economic growth. We need growth to have affordability. Why won't this Premier let Manitobans grow our economy rather than leave Manitobans struggling?
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, I don't know if that member opposite has already forgotten about the gold mine. Our government has made sure it's creating great jobs in this province and delivering. Honourable Speaker, our government, our province is leading the country in creating jobs. Job growth here in Manitoba is outpacing the rest of Canada. Couple that with the fact that our finance minister, who also happens to be the best finance minister in all of Canada, has brought forward a budget that has countless ways for Manitobans to save, improving the lives of Manitobans around affordability. We know that there's much more work to do, but it's important for us to acknowledge the good work that's been done and how much there would be to lose under a failed
time has expired. The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, we sure haven't forgotten about the gold mine because it's us, the PCs, who started the development on it. And we have many more resources. But under this Premier, unfortunately, we're falling further and further behind. In just 1 year, we've dropped from 6th under the PCs to 26th. And then guess what? This year, big announcement, another 10 spots in the attractiveness for critical mineral exploration. And why? because under this government, it takes far too long to open a new mine or develop resource projects because of their lengthy, confusing, and duplicitous approvals process. Other provinces are responsibly developing
time has expired. The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, I'm really glad that that member acknowledged that it's our government that's got that gold mine going here in Manitoba. Digging up that gold here in Manitoba. Manitoba, in March, the strongest growth in jobs and employment across all of Canada, Honourable Speaker. Our labor force increased by almost 11,000 Manitobans. Wow. That is something to be proud of. We are paving the way for generations of Manitobans to have great jobs right here at home. And when you go to those job sites, what do you see? You don't see cars with Alberta or Saskatchewan license plates or maybe even Ontario. Guess what, Honourable Speaker? Thanks to our government, Manitoba job plates, Manitoba jobs for
time has expired. The Honourable Member for La-Vérendrye on a new question.
Honourable Speaker, one of the biggest barriers to investment in Manitoba is the lack of a coordinated permitting system. Right now, proponents must navigate multiple departments, overlapping approvals, and no clear timelines. Why has this government failed to implement a single coordinated permitting system for our major projects?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, I want to take a moment to shout out our incredible minister who's responsible for business, mining, jobs, trades, job creation here. He's doing a phenomenal job. Some might say the best minister in all of Canada in terms of building our economy. And he just announced $2.5 million for mineral development here in our province. We are investing in making sure that we are responsibly getting those minerals out of the ground, making the most of our economy here in Manitoba, and the job growth numbers tell that story plainly. We are leading Canada. We are paving a path forward for generations of Manitobans that they can be proud of. None of that happened for 2 terms of the failed PCs.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for La-Vérendrye on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, that's really hard to believe because according to the Fraser Institute annual survey of mining companies, firms operating in Manitoba report losing an entire construction season or many construction seasons due to the permitting delays and describe the process as inconsistent and unpredictable. The Alamos Gold Project in Lynn Lake was approved and advanced under our PC government. That's proof that projects can move forward when government works with industry. Since then, unfortunately, progress has stalled and investor confidence has dropped. Why is this government allowing a broken approval system to drive investment outside of our province?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, nobody believes that MLA. Nope. And do you want to know why? It's because nobody can believe the leader of the opposition in anything he says. That has been proven time and time and time again. So no, nobody believes what that MLA has to say. And in fact, the labor force survey, which was just released on Friday for March, makes explicitly clear in black and white with graphs, there's tables in here, it's even in color. I encourage him to look at it. Manitoba is leading the country. We are doing a phenomenal job. We're investing in creating great jobs and a stronger economy. Never happened for 7.5 years under the failed PCs. We're doing that work for Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for La-Vérendrye on a final supplementary question.
Well, Honourable Speaker, while Manitoba is falling behind in global rankings, once again, our neighbours are ranked amongst the top. Ontario is now ranked among the top mining jurisdictions in the world and is actively cutting approval timelines through a one project, one process approach. That's attracting global investment, while here in Manitoba, projects are stalled. Why is this government driving investment and jobs in communities like Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, and Snow Lake out of our province instead of bringing them here?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, I'll table the document for the member opposite because I'm pretty confident he hasn't. Bothered to read it. The data is here in black and white. Manitoba's leading the country in job creation. We are training folks in the trades. We are training folks in this province to numbers we've never seen before to make sure that our workforce is as strong as it can possibly be. That is work that didn't happen for 7.5 years. But the most important question here for Manitobans is, who can you trust? It's not the failed PCs, Honourable Speaker. Manitobans have made that clear. It's our government that works for Manitobans each and every day. We'll take no lessons from that member or any member on that side of the House.
The honourable member for Midland.
The numbers are in. The latest 2026 intercity tax comparison shows that a Manitoba family earning $75,000 is paying nearly double in taxes compared to what families pay in Saskatchewan and British Columbia, and 3 times higher than what families are paying in Alberta. Alberta has no provincial sales tax. Saskatchewan is increasing their basic personal exemption to $65,000, and BC have increased tax rebates. Yet the NDP have ended indexation, failed to increase the basic personal amount, and skyrocketed education property taxes by 20% since just last year. Why is this NDP making Manitoba one of the most expensive provinces for families to live in west of the Maritimes?
The Honourable Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation.
Honourable Speaker, I'm happy to say that we've got the strongest budget in the country. That's a record that we're very proud of. Not only delivers on our effective budgeting skills, something Manitobans haven't seen under 2 terms of the former failed government, but at the same time, what have we done, Honourable Speaker? We've delivered with some real affordability for Manitobans by taking the PSD off of all groceries in the store. That continues on our track record of hydro freezes, of cutting a permanent cut to the gas tax, of delivering real affordability to Manitobans' homes, both renters and property owners. This is real affordability that Manitobans can count on. They can't trust the PCs. They can trust.
The honourable member for Midland on a supplementary question.
Manitobans are well aware that this NDP government is picking and choosing winners and losers within their budget. Manitoba remains one of the most highly taxed provinces in the country for families. In fact, a family earning $75,000 in Winnipeg faces higher provincial income taxes than Regina, Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal. A family in Vancouver is paying $1,500 in provincial income taxes. A family in Toronto is paying less than $1,000, and a family in Calgary is paying $1,700. Yet in Winnipeg, they're paying almost $3,500 in provincial income taxes. Why is this government choosing higher income taxes when Manitoba families are struggling the most?
The Honourable Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation.
Honourable Speaker, look at the track record on taxes. We suggested and brought in a permanent cut to the gas tax. What did members opposite do? They voted against it. We brought in taxes to reduce the amount you pay on your property. What did members opposite do? They voted against it. And just on Thursday, we had the vote to cut PSD off of all groceries, and member opposite voted against it. That's their record on taxes. They want higher taxes for Manitobans. We want to deliver affordability, and we'll keep doing it every day.
The honourable member for Midland on a final supplementary question.
Let's talk about that track record, Honourable Speaker, when the PCs reduced the PST after his former boss increased it to 8%. What else did the PCs do? We increased and almost doubled the basic personal exemption during the 7 years in office. What has this NDP government done? They haven't increased the BPA. They ended indexation of income taxes, thus pushing more Manitobans into a higher tax bracket. All the while, Manitoba remains one of the highest taxed provinces in the entire country. Why is this NDP choosing to take more from Manitoba's paychecks every single month rather than supporting our plan to increase the BPA to $30,000?
The Honourable Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation.
Honourable Speaker, if she talks about former bosses, is she talking about her former boss in Palliser who fired hundreds of nurses? Is she talking about her former boss Stephenson who tried to fire hundreds of school trustees and getting rid of the school boards? Well, I'll tell you what we're doing. We're hiring more Manitobans to work right here in Manitoba. Manitoba Jobs Agreements does that. We show our proof in the pudding by 11,000 new jobs just last month right here in Manitoba. That's our track record on building a strong economy for all Manitobans.
The honourable member for Portage-La Prairie.
Last week, staff at the Portage District General Hospital were informed that the opening date of the new hospital would be pushed back until April of next year. No explanation was given, no transparency with the public. The new facility is 100% complete, and staff are ready and eager and are being trained to move in. Can the minister explain why they made this disappointing and very harmful decision?
We can't find the scissors.
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, that member made a statement in this House today saying that Brian Palliser's decisions on health care were a good thing.
Unreal.
Honourable Speaker, Brian Palliser is the same person who closed our largest emergency rooms. Brian Palliser is the same person who fired hundreds of nurses. Brian Palliser is the same person who wouldn't allow healthcare workers on the front lines, including during a pandemic, get a pay raise.
Order.
And they can heckle me and shout at me all they want. Their record on healthcare is disgusting.
It is.
It is shameful.
Yep.
And using Brian Palliser as an example of what to do in healthcare is a
Member's
disgrace.
time has expired. The honourable member for Portage-La Prairie on a supplementary question.
The existing Portage District General Hospital has served the area well, but there are serious concerns about health and safety in the building. I know the minister is aware of this because staff raised it during the so-called listening tour. Dedicated healthcare staff have been holding on by a thread, doing all they can to ensure patient safety. So why is the minister forcing them to stay in this old facility until next April?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, I had a really great conversation with Mayor Knox last week, the Mayor of Portage-La Prairie. And we talked about the fact that the former failed PC government under Brian Palliser, who chose to take scissors to healthcare every single day of every single year that they had power, didn't bother to do the basic work of planning in advance to staff the Portage Hospital. That is work our government did from day one to make sure that the health, human resources would be in place. And we're going to keep working with the region and with the hospital to make sure that as many healthcare workers as possible are there so that first patient day one is a success. But he should ask his colleagues on that side of the House who were around the cabinet table, why did they cut healthcare and fail to plan?
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Portage-La Prairie on a final supplementary question.
The staff and patients are the ones raising concerns. It's too bad the minister has chosen not to listen. There are concerns about black mold, mice, and cockroaches throughout this facility. There is a leaking roof in the operating room. The minister wouldn't be comfortable being operated on in these conditions, so why do they expect my constituents to be comfortable with it?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, I'm going to go back to that member's own statements. He thinks that what Brian Palliser did for healthcare was a good thing. Brian Palliser decimated healthcare in Manitoba. He spent years and then passed the torch to Heather Stephenson to cut healthcare, fire healthcare workers, and have no plan for rural medicine. In fact, they cut the very fund that retained and attracted doctors to rural communities like Portage-La Prairie. We've restored those funds. We've restored relationships, and we're making sure that hospital opens with the right staff, the right resources, and a modernized digital infrastructure, something they didn't do for 7.5 years. His statements thanking Brian Palliser are an absolute embarrassment.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Right before entering the chamber, I heard from open shop contractors directly about the impact of this NDP job-killing Manitoba Jobs Agreement. 88% of contractors in Manitoba have chosen not to be unionized for a whole variety of reasons, and that is their right. That's their choice. Yet this Premier and his colleagues refuse to respect the decision by workers, and they are overriding the democratic will of these workers and forcing union dues on Manitobans through this Manitoba Jobs Agreement. These workers didn't have a say, and now a portion of their pay on a job site will be diverted to the Premier's union buddies himself. Why is the Premier undermining Manitobans' freedom of association choice?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, on this side of the House, we support all workers. That's right. Private, public, all workers in Manitoba are better off with an NDP government that supports workers no matter where they are in this province. And our labour force numbers tell that story in black and white. I'd be happy to table another copy of those documents for the Leader of the Opposition. 11,000 new jobs here in our province in March alone. The proof is in the pudding, the work is being done, and we're getting results for Manitobans in every corner of our province.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition on a supplementary question.
Under this NDP government, 88% of Manitobans have been cut out under this Manitoba Jobs Agreement by this NDP government. Freedom goes both ways, regardless of what the Premier wants to pretend. Manitobans didn't choose to have a surcharge charged to them, to Manitoba building trades on their job site. Workers didn't choose to associate with Premier's allies and union buddies. This is funneling taxpayer money, your money, to groups that run partisan ads for this Premier and his NDP government. Manitoba workers are in an affordability crisis. It's not fair for the NDP to impose surcharges on their wages. Will the Premier explain today to Manitobans why he thinks it's good policy to take money from Manitoba workers and hand it off to his union slush fund buddies?
The Honourable Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation.
Honourable Speaker, let me be clear that Manitoba Jobs Agreement is better for all workers right across our province. It's very clear. More workers can earn better wages, have safer work environments, and on Manitoba Job Agreements work sites, we turn a job site into a training site as well. Yes. More Manitobans are going to have opportunities to get trained and apprentices, build their skills, and meet the needs of our labour force for today, but also for generations to come. It's a comprehensive plan, something members opposite never understood. Under their side, their record was job sites turning into vehicles from Saskatchewan and Ontario, taking jobs. Instead, we're having Manitoba plates on those job sites so more Manitobans can work in this great province.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
This is about democracy. This is about Manitobans' choice to choose if they work for a union or non-union. Why is the Premier removing Manitobans' choice to choose where they work? Instead, the Premier is inserting himself in overruling union and non-union workers. He is forcing the Manitoba Jobs Agreement upon them. Honourable Speaker, 88% of Manitobans do not work in a union. Why does the Premier think it's okay? A surcharge, 85 cents for every hour worked, and force them to join a union, and force them to pay union dues when it's their democratic choice to not join a union? Will the Premier stand up today and explain to Manitobans why he's forcing unionization on Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation.
Honourable Speaker, member opposite's assertions are clearly inaccurate. The reality is that Manitoba Jobs Agreements creates more opportunities for more Manitobans. Higher wages, safer job sites, and more training opportunities means that we can fill the wage gap and the employment workforce gap of today by training the folks for tomorrow and next generation. More Manitoban working on construction sites right here. That's our plan. That's what we're delivering for. And you want to know what the proof is? We have #1 in Canada for job growth, 11,000 new jobs just this month. That's our record for creating jobs for more Manitobans, and we'll keep doing that good work on behalf of all Manitobans.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
You don't have to look any farther than their federal NDP leader to see how wrong this NDP government is. The Premier's new boss has made it clear there is no room in the modern NDP for projects that actually grow our economy. And I'll quote from their leader, "If you're building new pipelines or fossil infrastructure, this shall not pass." End quote. Wow. Who said that, Honourable Speaker? The federal NDP leader. After Avi Lewis delivered those remarks, the Premier right here in Manitoba went out of his way to support that message, saying it was timely, and he endorsed the position. How does the Premier think he will be helping to move Manitoba forward when their federal leader wants to crush energy and resource sector ahead of Manitoba's future?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, I know the idea of working with partners, the idea of building relationships with leaders at the federal level, municipal level, I know that that is a foreign concept for the Leader of the Opposition. This is a person who can't even get along with everybody on his side of the house. So I get it, that's tough. But on this side of the house, we believe in building relationships. We believe in doing the work that wasn't done for 2 terms of the failed PCs. And that results in results for Manitobans. You can see it in our labour workforce numbers, and you're going to continue to see it as we build schools, build hospitals, and build infrastructure for generations of Manitobans to come.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Manitoba's economy is dead last in Canada under this NDP government. Manitoba is also the only province that was left off the list of major projects office. The recent disappointing budget only sets aside $10 million for further studies into a Churchill project, an uncertain Churchill project that is at least 10 years away from viability. The Premier promised Manitobans he would increase provincial revenue by 30% in 5 years, but instead, under this Premier's mismanagement, Manitoba is receiving the largest federal transfer payments of $9 billion in the history of this province. The business community is struggling to find hope in this budget. Will the Premier tell Manitobans how this budget is designed to help boost Manitoba's economy when this Premier has now said he's against pipelines, natural gas, minerals, and energy?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, Manitobans are squarely against the Leader of the Opposition. That's right. That's right. They know that they can't trust a single thing that comes out of his mouth. Not only is he negative and divisive and incredibly hateful, but this is a person who time after time after time has shown Manitobans he simply cannot be trusted. Yep. So on this side of the House, we're going to build relationships with every level of government, build relationships with our partners in key sectors, and we are going to keep building Manitoba into a province that is stronger for generations to come. On that side of the House, he should focus on building his own party that is falling apart under his watch.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
Manitoba's economy is dead last in Canada under this NDP government. Manitobans need to be able to predict where the economy is going, to have faith that projects are substantive and not just radical. If the Premier and his real projects are underway, he would be telling Manitobans about them. In October of last year, he said details were coming on 3 major Manitoba projects. It's been 7 months and not one word on these 3 projects. Now the Premier has to get permission from his federal boss, Avi Lewis, about how to run Manitoba. The fear is that these projects have been shelved and investors have been scared away. What are these 3 projects the Premier talked about? Where will they be located? And what are the details? Or is this more hot air coming out of the Premier's mouth?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, nobody's listening to the Leader of the Opposition because everybody knows they can't trust a word that comes out of his mouth. Our Premier is the Premier that got Churchill on the map.
Right.
Our Premier is the Premier that made Churchill a very real economic opportunity by building relationships. Our Premier who has conversations in the relationship he's built with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister now knows that Churchill is a very real and important opportunity for our entire country. For 7.5 years, the failed PCs could have been talking about Churchill, but they didn't. For 7.5 years, the failed PCs could have been building up our economy, but they didn't. Honourable Speaker, let's make sure they never have...
The Honourable Member for Fort Richmond.
Honourable Speaker, under the previous government, cardiac center at St. Boniface Hospital was dismantled piece by piece, putting Manitoban lives at risk. Families deserve better than cuts and closures. Our government is taking action to protect and rebuild cardiac services, and last week we made an important announcement at St. Boniface Hospital. Can the Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care please tell Manitobans more about this exciting announcement?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, the previous government dismantled cardiac care at St. Boniface Hospital, and Manitobans paid the price with longer waits and reduced access to care. That's why I was so proud to stand at St. Boniface Hospital last week and announce that our government is investing $22.1 million to re-establish the Cardiac Centre of Excellence at Parkhill, Manitoba. This includes more beds and rapid access to cardiac assessments. This is about saving lives, reducing wait times, and improving heart care here in our province. Much done, much more to do.
The Honourable Member for Lac du Bonny.
Well, the NDP appointed Commissioner of the Teacher Registry is no longer in their position. What does the Education Minister have to say? The Education Minister has to say this, Honourable Speaker. Bobby Telfer has resigned as the Commissioner and is no longer acting as the Commissioner for the Registry here in Manitoba. What does the Premier say? The Premier says she was fired. So can anyone on that side of the bench who actually knows what's going on stand up and tell Manitobans, parents, guardians, and students what happened? What's the real story on Bobby Telfer, the Commissioner of the Teacher Registry?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and I want to speak directly to Manitobans and to reassure them that there is nothing more important than the safety and security of every single student in Manitoba. That is why it is our government that brought in the Teacher Registry. That is why our government appointed the first ever Office of the Independent Commissioner. I want to reassure Manitobans, however, that just earlier today we have appointed our new interim commissioner. The hunt is well underway for the permanent commissioner. And in the meantime, Honourable Speaker, I want to reassure Manitobans that the office remains open to receive complaints, to investigate complaints, again, because our top priority is serving the students and the families here in Manitoba.
The Honourable Member for Lac du Bonny on a supplementary question.
So I'm glad, Honourable Speaker, that the Premier actually let the Education Minister get up to put a few words on the record, because it's interesting. On Thursday, the Education Minister said, and I quote, she was entirely unaware of the Commissioner's whereabouts until confronted with the allegations. And the Education Minister, I wonder if she's standing by these words, in September of 2024, said that this was the right person at the right time for this job. And this Education Minister actually went on the record also saying that she has full confidence in Mrs. Telfer in performing this role, said this Education Minister. So Manitoba students, parents, and guardians are asking today. Which is it? Did
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And it's very important. One of the reasons that we brought in the Office of the Independent Commissioner is to restore trust in our public education system, Honourable Speaker. After years of broken trust, Honourable Speaker, and we realize that that trust is going to take time to repair. That's why it is our government. After years, 2 terms of the previous government failing to take any action, failing to appoint an Office of an Independent Commissioner, failing to provide this extra layer of public accountability to protect students in school, that is why our government came in and we acted. That's why we brought in the Office of the Independent Commissioner, and I want to reassure Manitobans that this office remains open, and it is more than just one person.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Lac du Bonny on a final supplementary question.
So after years of debt decline and disaster under the previous NDP government, it was our government that brought in the teacher registry, and it was them that appointed the NDP conflict commissioner that now is either resigned, according to the education minister, or was fired, according to the premier. Unfortunately, the education minister obviously has bungled this file, so the premier felt it was his time to stand up on the weekend and bring forward the fact that he had actually fired her. So I'm asking her to come clean today. Which is it? Did she resign or did she get fired, Honourable Speaker?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And certainly Manitobans decided who was fired in October of 2023. The truth is, Honourable Speaker, Manitobans know who they can trust when it comes to public education here in Manitoba. Yeah. That is why Manitobans showed the member from Lac du Bonny the door during his time as a failed education minister who did not appoint a commissioner, who failed to protect kids here in this province. On this side of the House, Manitobans absolutely understand who they can trust. In fact, Honourable Speaker, it was under the failed interim leadership of the member of Lac du Bonny that the previous PC government saw so many.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Seine River.
Honourable Speaker, Manitobans know that a good, stable job is the foundation for building a good life. At a time when there's so much global uncertainty, families want to know that their economy is strong and that opportunities are growing here at home. Can the Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation tell the House what the latest job numbers mean for Manitoba workers and our economy?
The Honourable Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation.
Honourable Speaker, just like the Artemis II mission that went to the moon soaring, so are our job numbers here in Manitoba. 11,000 new jobs right here in Manitoba this month. Huge shout out to Jeremy Hansen and the entire crew. We're so proud of our Canadian on that mission, but we're proud of the 11,000 new Manitobans who are working here because of the incredible job we're building and a strong economy right here in Manitoba.
The Honourable Member for Borderland.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. You know, after Manitoba's construction industry formally requested that the Auditor General investigate this NDP government's job-killing Manitoba Jobs Agreement and focusing on the 85-cent per hour per worker surcharge and the potentially millions of dollars diverted from public investment with zero transparency, the building trades, this NDP government's allies ran out and said, well, that money is for administration. And then this NDP Minister for Public Service Delivery runs out and tells media that money is actually for safety. So which is it? Honourable Speaker, can the Minister tell us today where exactly is this money going?
The Honourable Minister, Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We are building Manitoba, and we are making sure Manitoba workers are the one who are building it. Manitoba Jobs Agreement means good jobs, fair wages, safe work sites, and real training opportunity on public job projects. When we build schools, hospitals, and roads, we expect Manitobans to benefit from those jobs that comes with them. Manitoba Jobs Agreement makes sure it does that. Honorable Speaker, I will continue to listen to Manitoba workers, and I'll continue to listen to Manitoba businesses as well. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The honourable member for Borderland on a supplementary question.
You know, the minister talks about safety. I'd like the minister to know that safety outcomes in the industry, construction industry, have been driven by industry-based programs. For example, the Construction Safety Association of Manitoba was created by the Winnipeg Construction Association. Work Safely was created by Manitoba Heavy. So the industry has got that matter settled. But I'm wondering if the minister could commit to an independent third-party review of the Manitoba Jobs Agreement. If he thinks it's so great, would he agree? Could he guarantee evidence-based accountability and transparent oversight? Would he agree to an independent review to assess competition and bidder participation?
Member, time has expired. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And every single worker that works on that job site is better off because of MJA. Yep. Honorable Speaker, we will continue to listen to Manitoba workers, and we will continue to listen to the Manitoba businesses as well. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The time for oral questions has expired, and I would like to acknowledge some students in the public gallery. We have seated in the public gallery from Hamiota Collegiate 25 grade 9 students under the direction of Chris Obach, and this group is located in the constituency of the Honourable Member for Riding Mountain. We welcome you here today. Petitions. No petitions. Grievances. Orders of the day. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, can you call for second reading debate Bill 49, Bill 13, Bill 15, and Bill 48?
It has been announced that we will now proceed with second reading of Bill 49, Bill 13, Bill 15, and Bill 48. So, without further ado, the Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move that Bill number 49, the Business Practice Amendment Act.
Order, please. You need a seconder. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
I move, seconded by the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, that Bill number 49, the Business Practice Amendment Act, be now read a second time and be referred to the committee of this House.
Been moved by the Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery, seconded by the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change, that Bill number 49, the Business Practices Amendment Act, be now read a second time and be referred to a committee of this House. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Manitobans continue to experience affordability pressures, including rising food costs. At the same time, evolving pricing practices such as personalized data-based pricing have raised concern about fairness. Bill 49 amends the Business Practice Act to make it an unfair business practice to use personal data to increase the price for the consumers. This applies to both online retailers as well as electronic self-labelings in stores. By doing so, this will respond to concern that companies may be using and individuals' personal data against them by charging them more for goods, including groceries, than other consumers. The amendments also include definitions that reflect the current and evolving changes to Manitoba's retail landscape. By adding definitions for online platform, online retailers, online distributors, personalized data-based pricing, and electronic self-labeling system. This will demonstrate our government's commitment to making life more affordable and helping you with the grocery prices. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
So a question period of up to 15 minutes will be held. Questions may be addressed to the minister by any opposition or independent member in the following sequence. First question by the official opposition critic or designate. Subsequent questions asked by critics or designates from other recognized official opposition parties. Subsequent question asked by each independent member. Remaining question asked by any opposition members, and no question or answer shall exceed 45 seconds. The floor is now open for questions. The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Can the minister explain how this bill will lower the cost of groceries in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Speaker, we have heard from Manitobans that their personal data is sometimes being used against them when it comes to grocery prices or the services and goods, Honourable Speaker. Very simple, Honourable Speaker, using two phones, have a side-by-side, looking at one of them is you see a totally a different price, and the second one you will see a different price because companies are using your personal data. They are seeing your practices, what you buy mostly, or what you are searching online mostly. So that's where we want to make sure the companies are not charging you more than the other person they are charging.
Member's time has expired. No further questions. The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Speaker. How much can Manitobans expect to save directly at a grocery store as the result of this bill? Is there a specific number in savings that this minister can point to?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We have heard from Manitobans that grocery prices are the main cost these days after the rent. And Honourable Speaker, that's where we are taking action after listening to Manitobans and where they are seeing when they buy online, their personal data is used. And we want to make sure we protect people's personal data. And also we want to make sure when they are buying something online, everyone is paying the same price, not someone who is buying more, who's regularly buy one stuff being charged more than the other person. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods.
Can the Minister of Consumer Protection point to a single receipt from a grocery store, gas station, or any other day-to-day business that will be cheaper because of Bill 49?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Speaker, I want the opposition to pass this bill so we can bring this practice into law, and we will go out and ask Manitobans to help us develop the regulations as well. So I'm just asking the opposition to pass this bill today. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
What evidence can this minister share with this House that proves that this bill will result in lower prices for consumers?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I have shared this information earlier when he came to our office that even having two phones side by side, the one you are using to buy grocery online and the one you are not using to buy something online, you are seeing two different prices, Honourable Speaker. We want to make sure we are protecting Manitobans against these predatory pricing. So that's why we brought this bill forward, so it's going to help with the grocery prices. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. Can the minister point to any other jurisdiction, either across Canada, the United States, or possibly Europe, where a similar precedent is already set? And if so, what kind of learnings can this minister take from those other jurisdictions while implementing this bill?
The honourable minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We are taking the lead on this, Honourable Speaker. We are hearing from Manitobans. We are hearing from Canadians as well, Honourable Speaker. We are out in the community listening to Manitobans, what their concerns are. This is one of the concerns that they have raised with us. So we are delivering on the priority that Manitoban asked us to deliver on. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
Does the minister actually believe that the regulation alone will make the life more affordable for Manitobans?
The honourable minister of Public Service Delivery.
Sorry, Honourable Speaker, I missed that question, but our main objective with this bill is making sure companies are not using your personal data to charge you more. That's the main objective of this bill. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And also lowering your grocery prices.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Honourable Speaker, can this minister explain why his government is prioritizing virtue signaling over direct affordability measures like tax relief?
The honourable minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Speaker, we are talking about Bill 49. Bill 49 is about protecting Manitobans, and this is also about lowering the grocery prices. This is where companies are using your personal data to charge you more, and we are saying not anymore. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Midland.
Can the minister please list the performance targets and measurable outcomes that will result as a result of this legislation being passed?
The honourable minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Again, as I said earlier, people are facing affordability crisis, and this is where we brought this bill forward to make sure we are protecting Manitobans against those companies that are using predatory pricing to lower their grocery prices. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
Does the minister agree that Manitobans deserve concrete tax relief to address the cost of living?
The honourable minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Speaker, a member is not maybe aware, we are debating Bill 49 right now. The Bill 49 is the Business Practice Amendment Act, and this is where we are talking about how we can lower the grocery prices, and this is about where companies are using your personal data to charge you more, and we are saying not anymore. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Honourable Speaker, would the minister agree that Manitobans would rather see a larger paycheck through a higher basic personal amount than another layer of regulation for a problem that doesn't exist?
The honourable minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Speaker, the member is aware we are taking concrete action when the best finance minister in Canada, who brought the budget forward, where we are bringing real affordability measures into this, Honourable Speaker. And part of that affordability measure is also Bill 49, Honourable Speaker. This is where we are protecting people's data. We are making sure the companies are not charging you more. And Honourable Speaker, we will continue to listen to Manitobans on this. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't receive an answer to my previous question, so I'll give the minister an opportunity to answer again as to what specific performance targets the minister has laid out to better understand if this legislation will be successful for Manitobans. If he can't list a measurable outcome or a performance target, then can Manitobans assume that he doesn't have any, and if not, why?
The honourable minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Speaker, the member want Manitobans to pay for more for the grocery prices and the consumer goods. Honourable Speaker, on this side of the House, we are against that, Honourable Speaker. That's why we brought this bill forward where we want to protect your data and also lower your grocery prices on this, Honourable Speaker. We will continue to listen to Manitobans, Honorable Speaker. Manitobans have asked us to deliver on these priorities, and that's why our West Finance Minister in Canada has brought a excellent budget. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. So again, I'll give the minister another opportunity. I'm asking specifically about measurable outcomes and performance targets. How will Manitobans know if this legislation is successful unless the minister has some performance targets as what he would like to see this legislation accomplish? So I'll ask him again, if he can lay out, whether it's 3 performance targets, 5 performance targets, whatever that number may be, what are some of those specific performance targets that he has laid out to show Manitobans that this legislation will be successful once implemented?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honorable Speaker, I want the member to pass this bill, and let's put this onto board, and we want to make sure we deliver real result for Manitobans. That's what Manitobans want to do it, Honorable Speaker. I will continue to listen to Manitoban on this, and Honorable Speaker, I know that affordability is the main issue here in Manitoba and across Canada, Honorable Speaker, and that's why we brought this bill forward. This is the first of its kind in Canada, Honorable Speaker, and we also want other provinces to follow our lead. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
If this bill passes and prices do not come down, will this minister admit that he has failed to protect consumers?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Once again, Honorable Speaker, the member hasn't really read the bill on this. Honorable Speaker, this is about data being used to charge you more, and this is where we are saying this is not going to be allowed in Manitoba, Honorable Speaker. We will continue to listen to Manitobans, Honorable Speaker. We know the affordability is the issue here in Manitoba and across Canada, Honorable Speaker. That's why we are delivering a real result. Honorable Speaker recently presented a budget by our Finance Minister, and which is the excellent budget that he have presented. We will continue to listen to Manitoba, Honorable Speaker, and we will continue to deliver on their priorities. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
No further questions? Then the floor is open for debate. The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Honourable Speaker, I rise today to speak to Bill 49, the Business Practices Amendment Act. Bill 49 proposes amendments to the Business Practices Act to address what is described as personalized algorithmic pricing. In essence, the bill seeks to regulate situations in which businesses may use data, algorithms, or automatic systems to adjust the price of goods for individual consumers. It expands the definition of unfair business practices to include cases where a consumer may be charged more based on their personal data, behavior, or inferred willingness to pay. The legislation also introduces a number of new definitions, including online retailers, online distributors, and electronic shelf labeling systems. It clarifies that unfair business practices can occur through the use of algorithms, artificial intelligence, or machine learning, even in cases where a transaction is not ultimately completed. Additionally, it establishes requirements for disclosure and consent where personalized pricing is used. At a high level, the intent of the bill is to protect consumers. That is a principle that all members of this House can support. Manitobans expect fairness in the marketplace. They expect that the price they see is the price they pay, and that they are not being treated differently based on factors beyond their control or awareness. In that sense, there is value in ensuring that our legislative framework keeps pace with technological change. The increasing use of data analytics and digital platforms has transformed how businesses operate. It is reasonable for governments to consider whether existing consumer protection laws remain adequate in that evolving environment. However, while the intent of Bill 49 is understandable, it is equally important to examine its relevance, its timing, and its likely impact. One of the central considerations in evaluating this bill is the question of whether the issue it seeks to address is currently present in Manitoba or, more broadly, in Canada. To date, there have been no widely documented cases of personalized algorithmic pricing being used in a way that disadvantages consumers in everyday transactions such as groceries, fuel, or basic retail purchases. This raises an important point. Bill 49 is, by its own nature, a proactive or preventative measure. It is designed to address a potential future scenario rather than an existing demonstrated problem. While there can be value in forward-looking legislation, it is also important that such measures are balanced against present-day priorities. Manitobans today are facing very real and immediate financial pressures. The cost of living continues to be a significant concern for families across the province. Whether it is at the grocery store, at the gas pump, or in managing household expenses, many residents are feeling the strain. In that context, is it reasonable to ask which direct impact this bill will have on affordability? Will it lower the price of groceries? Will it reduce the cost of fuel? Will it make everyday purchases more accessible for families who are already struggling to make ends meet? Based on the provisions of the bill, the answer appears to be that it will not have an immediate or measurable effect on prices. Instead, it establishes a regulatory framework that may become relevant if certain business practices emerge in the future. That distinction is important. There is a difference between legislation that addresses a current problem and legislation that anticipates a potential one. Both have their place, but they should not be confused. Another aspect to consider is the potential impact on businesses. Manitoba's economy includes a wide range of enterprises, from small local retailers to larger companies operating online platforms. These businesses rely on clear and predictable rules in order to operate effectively. Bill 49 introduces new compliance considerations related to data use, pricing practices, and consumer disclosure. While these requirements are intended to protect consumers, they may also create additional administrative burdens for businesses, particularly small ones that may not have the resources to navigate complex regulatory frameworks. It is also important to ensure that the legislation does not inadvertently restrict legitimate business practices. For example, many businesses offer discounts, loyalty programs, or targeted promotions as a way to attract and retain customers. These practices are generally understood and accepted by consumers, and they play a role in maintaining competitive markets. As such, it will be important to clarify that the provisions of Bill 49 are not interpreted in a way that discourages or penalizes businesses for offering value to their customers. Clear guidance and, if necessary, amendments may be required to ensure that the line between unfair pricing and legitimate promotional activity is well understood. The bill also raises questions about enforcement and implementation. While the financial implications are described as minimal, there will inevitably be costs associated with monitoring compliance, investigating potential violations, and enforcement. These costs may not be significant in the short term, but they could increase over time, particularly if the scope of the legislation expands or if cases begin to arise. In addition, regulators will need to develop the expertise required to assess complex algorithmic systems and data practices. This is not a straightforward task. It involves technical knowledge, access to information, and the ability to interpret how pricing decisions are made within digital systems. Transparency will be another key factor. The bill includes provisions related to disclosure and consent, requiring businesses to clearly explain when and why a higher price is being charged. While this is a positive step in principle, its effectiveness will depend on how it is implemented in practice. Information must be presented in a way that is understandable and meaningful to consumers, rather than buried in lengthy terms and conditions. As we consider this legislation, it is also worth noting that Manitoba would be among the first jurisdictions in Canada to introduce such measures. Being a leader in consumer protection can be positive, but it also comes with responsibility. It is important to ensure that the approach we take is informed by evidence, aligned with broader trends, and adaptable as circumstances evolve. There are also several questions that merit further discussion as this bill moves forward. For example, what specific evidence has informed the development of this legislation? How will success be measured? What outcomes should Manitobans expect to see if the bill is implemented? Additionally, how will the government ensure that consumers are aware of their rights under this new framework? Legislation alone is not sufficient. It must be accompanied by education and outreach to ensure it has a meaningful impact. Another important consideration is the balance between consumer protection and innovation. Digital technologies and data analytics have the potential to improve efficiency, enhance services, and create new opportunities. Regulatory framework should aim to protect consumers without unduly restricting these benefits. Bill 49 is a forward-looking piece of legislation that seeks to address the potential risks associated with personalized algorithmic pricing. Its intent to protect consumers and ensure fairness in the marketplace is one that deserves support. At the same time, the bill does not address the immediate affordability challenges facing Manitobans. It does not lower prices, increase outcomes, or provide direct relief to families who are struggling with the cost of living. As legislators, it is our responsibility to carefully consider both the intent and the impact of the laws we pass. In the case of Bill 49, that means acknowledging its potential value while also recognizing its limitations. I encourage the government to continue engaging with stakeholders, including businesses, consumer advocates, and technical experts, to ensure that this legislation is clear, effectively, and appropriately targeted. I also encourage a continued focus on policies that address the immediate economic realities faced by Manitobans. With those considerations in mind, I look forward to further discussion of this bill as it proceeds through the legislative process. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
No further speakers. Is the House ready for the question? So then the question before the House is second reading of Bill number 49, the Business Practices Amendment Act. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed, and so ordered. The motion is accordingly passed. As previously announced, then, we will now go on to second reading of Bill 13, the Residential Tenancies Amendment Act. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move, seconded by the Minister of Agriculture, that Bill number 13, Residential Tenancies Amendment Act, be now read a second time and be referred to a committee of this House.
It's been moved by the Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery, seconded by the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, that Bill number 13, the Residential Tenancies Amendment Act, be now read a second time and be referred to a committee of this House. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Residential Tenancies Act amendment aims to deliver an immediate and meaningful improvement to the rental housing affordability while ensuring a fair and transparent regulatory environment for both tenants and landlords. The bill introduces a requirement for the landlords to file information about each of their rental units with the director of the Residential Tenancies branch, including contact information for themselves and their property managers, so that a branch has a comprehensive database of all landlords and the rental units. And the tenants know who to reach to discuss any concern that they may have regarding rent and repair. Furthermore, when a tenant has given notice that they are not renewing their lease, this will require landlords to provide at least 24 hours notice to the current tenant before showing a rental unit to the prospective tenant. The Act would also be amended to remove an order against a tenant from the public order registry system after 7 years, provided that the order does not relate to impairment of safety or unlawful activities. F, after 7 or more years have passed after since an order of impairment or safety or unlawful activity was issued, a tenant can apply to the director to have it removed. As well, it will require the director to review the provision of the Residential Tenancies Act dealing with the rent regulation every 5 years, which include engagement with Manitobans and with the Minister's Landlord and Tenant Advisory Committee, and that the report be tabled in the Assembly. This will authorize an administrative penalty to be issued for the failing to comply with any order made by the director under the Residential Tenancy Act. As well, it will increase the maximum administrative penalty amount from $5,000 to $10,000. All these proposed amendments align with the mandate to review the Residential Tenancy Act to strengthen renters' rights and protect affordable housing, and align with the commitment in the 2025 speech from the throne to bring in new rules to stop unfair rent increase and strengthen renters' rights. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
A question period of up to 15 minutes will be held. Questions may be addressed to the minister by any opposition or independent member in the following sequence. First question by the official opposition critic or designate. And, subsequent questions asked by each independent member. Remaining questions asked by any opposition members, and no question or answer shall exceed 45 seconds. The floor is open for questions. The honourable member for Borderland.
How does the government ensure that increased regulation does not discourage landlords from investing in upgrades to aging rental units?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, I want to let the member know member from Borderland, this bill is not what he's talking about. He hasn't even read the bill, so hopefully he can read the bill first and then ask the question. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli.
Yeah, I think the minister might be the one who needs to read the bill. This increases regulation and discourages investment. If somebody can't invest in their or won't invest in their building because they can't increase the rents, obviously it'll discourage investment. So if the minister can answer the question.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, I just want to let the member know as well, the landlords are in favour of this bill. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli.
Well, that begs the question then, who did the minister consult with? Obviously, different landlords than the ones who've come forward with concerns to us. So if the member can explain who he's actually consulted with on this bill.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we have consulted the landlords on this, and as well as the renters on this bill, Honourable Speaker. The member is talking about the regulation. He don't even know what he's talking about. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Borderland.
Under this bill, the amount a landlord can spend on capital expenditures like a new roof or windows and is eligible to claim as an above guideline rent increase application would be cut in half. The stated intent is to significantly reduce the cost to renters, but what it would actually do is reduce the likelihood of getting units repaired, renovated, built, or even basic maintenance. So I wonder why the minister is putting forward a bill that would further limit new builds in the province and only serve to lower the standard of living for Manitobans.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Manitobans, you have seen it, the member from Waterland talking about the regulation. We are debating the bill today here. The bill is about which landlord and the renters agree on this bill, Honourable Speaker. We have a really positive discussion with the renters as well as landlords, Honourable Speaker. We have recently met with the both sides. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli.
The minister keeps saying that we've met with. He hasn't listed anybody or any associations that he claims to have met with so far. Has he met with any mom and pop landlords, and how is this going to affect them? What if somebody only has one rental unit? Are they still required to register with the province of Manitoba, for example?
The Honourable Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Minister, this bill is, as I said, have been hearing from Manitobans that there's a concern that whenever they want to repair something and they have no information for the landlord, or they have no information about the agency that's taking care of that block. So we have brought this bill forward to make sure the information be collected for the land tenants to, in case of emergency, or if they want to get information about the rent, or if they want to have their units repaired. So we want to make sure that that information is with the RTV. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The member for Swan River.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. What evidence does government have that more reporting requirements lead to improved housing quality rather than stagnation?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, the last answer that I have given exactly why we want to make sure we collect the data that we need to improve the access for the renters. They know exactly in case of emergency, in case of repair, that they have that information. The information that they are missing sometimes, they don't have that on. Honourable Speaker, we want to make sure we collect that information and we are better informed later on as we make decision on this as well. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli.
Yeah, the minister mentions potential missing information. So if somebody accidentally fails to comply because they didn't check a box, are they facing a $10,000 fine? And is this an acceptable omission, or where do they draw the line?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, RTV is always fair. We want to make sure we have given enough time to the landlords whenever there's a repair need to be fixed, whenever there's an order. It's not that we can have that stick in our hand and we can tell the folks, hey, you know what, every single small order that against you is going to cost you $10,000. So that's not the intent of this bill, Honourable Speaker. This is to make sure those bad actors that there are, and they are not, even after repeated requests, that they are not fixing their units, that this can be applied to those folks. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli.
Yeah, I think the minister's mistaken. He said $10,000 won't bankrupt the tenant. But if there's a mom and pop that have one rental suite and they make one error because they've missed to check a box somewhere, $10,000 could be more than the whole entire annual rent. So that begs the question then, who is going to conduct these reviews and who's going to police them? Keep saying that we are going to have a stick. Will they be independent from government as well? These are questions that are still unanswered.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. This bill will authorize administrative penalty to be issued for failing to comply with any order made by the director under the Residential Tenancy Act, as well as it will increase the maximum administrative penalty from 5,000 to 10,000. Honorable Speaker, this is where we are talking about in case there's a repair need to be done on the building, the landlord is not doing the repair, does the member from opposite side want those tenants to be unsafe in their units? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli.
Well, the tenants that we talked to would like to know who is going to conduct these reviews and will they be independent from government? A straightforward question. Please answer it.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy and Assistant Speaker. I really don't know what the member is really talking about. Not really understanding either. I know when my critic is unable to come and be briefed on the bill, and none of the PC members read this bill. This is what he's talking about. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, they really don't care about the renters. They don't want them to have a safe place to live. They want people to live in unsafe places, which is under our NDP government will not going to happen, Honourable Speaker. We will continue to listen to renters as well as the landlords, and we will
Member's
make
time
sure...
has expired. The Honourable Member for Borderland.
Yeah, I wonder if the Minister can say whether or not the government has estimated the compliance cost of the new registry system.
Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, sorry I did not hear the question, but this is about strengthening renters' right, also protecting them whenever there are orders against the landlords, and those are not the first time that you will kind of get those fines, Honourable Speaker. Our RTV department is reasonable, and they go out and work with the landlord to make sure the units are fixed and they are safe for the renter to stay. And our focus will always be listening to both renters and landlords. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The member for Swan River.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Will tenants and landlords both have input into these reviews?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, yes, there's both sides. Landlords and the renters have input in developing of this bill. We had a very good discussion with the landlords on this bill. As I said, they are in favor of this bill, and there's nothing like they also want to make sure they have a safe units, and they also know that there are certain landlords which are not a good actor in the industry, and they are themselves telling us, hey, you know what, we need this kind of bill to protect the renters. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Interlake Gimli.
Yeah, the minister failed to answer the question of how much this will cost government in the compliance of this new registry system. How many FTEs are attributed to this? How many vehicles do they get? How many jobs, bureaucratic jobs, are going to be dedicated to this?
Before acknowledging the minister, I just want to remind all members to direct questions and comments through the chair. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. I want to let the member know it's going to cost $0 to the government. We already have the registry. It's not written in the law that they have to provide this information, but it was honorary that they should provide this information. This is where we are making it a law that they should be providing this information. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Borderland.
You know, the real issue with rental housing stock in Manitoba is that it is a matter of supply. We want more stock, not less. And so, you know, when the government proposes legislation like this, I'm wondering how they will ensure that this bill does not reduce private investment in rental housing construction and upgrades.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Once again, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker, the member hasn't read the bill. He don't know what he's talking about, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. This bill is about the protection for the renters. This is about make sure they have a safe place to live. We are making sure the landlords are keeping their building up to date, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. This is making sure, and as I said earlier, both sides, landlords are agree with us on this bill, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker, and also the renters are agree with this. And they both sides, when we met recently, and they were happy with this bill.
The member's time has expired. The honourable member for Interlake Gimli.
Yes, according to this bill, there's mandatory registration of every unit. So if somebody has 100 units, that's fine and dandy. Then the question needs to be asked, if somebody has one unit and they're renting it to a family member, for example, does that have to be registered with this government if this legislation moves forward?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker, as I said earlier, this is about protecting the renters and units the people are renting if they're family members, you know. But I can say about that one is this is about protecting every single renter that is out there. This is about having that phone number that in case that person needs it. This is about making sure we know who the landlord is. Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker, this is where we want to make sure we have that full data that we needed to make a decision going forward as well, making sure how many units there are and how many are...
Member's time has expired. The member for Swan River.
Yeah, could the minister elaborate a little more on what specific data will landlords be required to submit and at what frequency or how often must it be updated?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. I want to thank the member for that question. This is about filing each rental units with the Director of a Residential Tenancy branch, including contact information for themselves, their property managers, so that the branch has a comprehensive data base of all landlords and rental units and tenants who know where to reach whenever they have a concern regarding rent or regarding repair. Thank you, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The time for question period is over. The floor is open for debate. The member for Borderland.
Bill 13 requires Bill 13, the Residential Tenancies Amendment Act, is a bill that introduces a series of administrative changes to the residential tenancies framework. And while there are elements within it that speak to process oversight and certain aspects of tenant protection, it doesn't address the fundamental driver of rising rents in this province, which is the imbalance between housing supply and housing demand. Bill 13 requires landlords to file information about rental units with the Director of Residential Tenancies, establishes a requirement for 24 hours notice before showing a unit to a prospective tenant, mandates a 5-year review of rent regulation, limits public access to certain historical tenant decisions, and increases administrative penalties for non-compliance, including raising the maximum penalty from $5,000 to $10,000. These are procedural changes, and they may improve record keeping, they may enhance oversight, they may adjust the balance of enforcement, but they do not increase the number of housing units in Manitoba, and they do not reduce the cost of rent for Manitobans. The central issue, as I said, facing renters today is not lack of regulation, it's a lack of supply. When demand for housing exceeds the available supply, prices rise. It's economics 101. And of course, that's probably why this NDP government doesn't understand that simple principle. Supply and demand. But this is not a matter of ideology. It's a matter of basic economics. When more people are competing for fewer units, landlords are placed in a position where rents increase because the market allows it. If this legislature is serious about affordability, then it must be serious about increasing the number of housing units available to Manitobans. And it's also important to ground this debate in the long-term realities of Manitoba's housing stock. Approximately 90,000 rental units exist in Manitoba today, which represents growth from roughly 66,000 units 35 years ago. And it's important to note that this did not occur by accident, this increase. It is the result of a sustained investment, stable financing conditions, and a regulatory environment that allowed developers and lenders to proceed with confidence. If we are serious about affordability, then we must be equally serious about encouraging that same growth in housing stock going forward, because without a continuous expansion of supply, the pressures we are seeing today will only intensify for the next generation of Manitobans. This bill risks moving us in the opposite direction. There is an important distinction that must be made in this debate. Landlords must treat tenants with respect and dignity. That is not optional. That is a fundamental expectation in any civilized society, and it is one that should be upheld in both law and practice. The provisions in this bill relating to notice for showings and the removal of historical decisions from public access speak to that principle of fairness and dignity. However, the issue of how tenants are treated is separate from the issue of why rents are increasing. The one is a question of conduct, the other is a question of supply and demand. And so conflating the two doesn't do anything to solve or ameliorate the affordability crisis. When governments introduce changes that create uncertainty in the housing market, they must be very careful about the consequences of that uncertainty. Housing development, particularly multifamily housing, is capital intensive. It relies on long planning horizons, predictable regulatory environments, and stable financing arrangements. When those conditions are disrupted, investment decisions change. A significant portion of multifamily housing development in Manitoba is financed through syndicated mortgages, often provided by credit unions. These are not speculative instruments. They are structured investments that rely on the pooled capital of Manitobans, and they are governed by a regulatory framework that prioritizes the protection of members' deposits. Credit unions do not operate with the same profit-maximizing incentives as traditional financial institutions, but they are nevertheless bound by the need for prudence, stability, and risk management. Credit unions operate under clear regulatory constraints. They must assess risk carefully. They must ensure that projects they finance are viable over the long term. They must protect the savings of their members. When the rules governing multifamily housing are changed in ways that introduce uncertainty, that uncertainty is reflected in lending decisions. Projects that might have proceeded under a stable regime are delayed, scaled back, or canceled entirely when the financial outlook becomes less predictable. And this isn't a theoretical concern. This is how capital markets function. When lenders perceive increased risk, they respond by tightening lending criteria, increasing required returns, or withdrawing from certain types of projects altogether. In the context of housing, that means fewer new developments. It means fewer rental units coming onto the market. It means that the supply of housing grows more slowly than it otherwise would. And when supply fails to keep pace with demand, the result is entirely predictable. Rents increase. Honourable Speaker, this is the central flaw in Bill 13. It approaches the housing crisis as though it is primarily a regulatory issue when in fact it is a supply issue. By focusing on administrative controls and enforcement mechanisms without addressing the conditions necessary for new housing construction, the bill risks discouraging the very investment that is needed to increase supply. The requirement for landlords to file detailed information about each rental unit with the director may improve data collection, but it also introduces an additional administrative burden. The expansion of enforcement powers and the increase in administrative penalties may enhance compliance, but they also increase the regulatory risk associated with operating rental housing. The requirement for periodic reviews of rent regulation introduces a degree of ongoing uncertainty about the future regulatory environment. Each of these measures, taken individually, may appear modest. Taken together, they contribute to a climate in which investors and lenders must reassess the risk profile of housing projects. For large institutional landlords, these changes may be manageable. They have the scale and the resources to absorb regulatory complexity. For smaller developers, local builders, and community-based housing providers, the cumulative effect of these changes can be far more significant. These are often the very actors who contribute to incremental increases in housing supply, and they are also the ones most sensitive to changes in financing conditions. It's also important to consider the long-term implications of discouraging investment in rental housing. Housing markets do not respond overnight. The decisions made today about whether to proceed with a development project will affect the availability of housing years into the future. When projects are delayed or canceled, the impact is not immediately visible, but it accumulates over time. The result is a persistent shortfall in supply that continues to put upward pressure on rents. If the government's objective is really to improve affordability, then it must recognize that affordability is directly linked to supply. Increasing supply requires policies that encourage construction, reduce uncertainty, and support financing. It requires a regulatory environment that is stable, predictable, and conducive to long-term investment. It requires a partnership with the financial institutions, including credit unions, that play a critical role in funding housing development. Bill 13 does not advance those objectives. It does not provide incentives for new construction. It does not reduce barriers to development. It does not address the cost pressures associated with building new housing. Instead, it introduces additional layers of administration and enforcement without addressing the underlying economic dynamics of the housing market. The consequences of this approach are not abstract. When fewer units are built, more people are competing for the units that exist, and when competition increases, rents rise. When rents rise, affordability declines. This is the cycle that Manitobans are experiencing today, and this is the cycle that will continue if supply is not addressed. It's also worth noting that the financial implications of this bill extend beyond the private sector. The requirement for the province to collect and manage detailed information on all rental units will entail administrative costs. The expansion of enforcement mechanisms will require resources. These are costs that will ultimately be borne by taxpayers, and they must be considered in the broader context of fiscal responsibility. And that's why it was so disappointing, Honourable Speaker, that the Minister couldn't answer any questions on this topic. There is a path forward that would more directly address affordability. It involves creating the conditions necessary for increased housing supply. It involves working with municipalities to streamline approvals, supporting infrastructure that enables new development, and ensuring that financing remains accessible and predictable. And it also involves recognizing the role of both private and community-based developers in meeting housing needs, and this government ought to respect them, the role they play, and their concerns. It also involves maintaining a clear distinction between the treatment of tenants and the economics of housing supply. Ensuring that tenants are treated with dignity is essential. It is a matter of fairness and justice. However, it does not on its own reduce rents. Reducing rents requires increasing supply. That is the reality that must guide policy decisions. So ultimately, Bill 13 is a missed opportunity. It could have been a vehicle for meaningful action on affordability. It could have addressed the structural issues in the housing market and provided a framework for increasing supply while maintaining fairness for tenants. Instead, however, it focuses on administrative adjustments that do not change the fundamental dynamics of the market. As legislators, we have a responsibility to address the real challenges facing Manitobans. Housing affordability is one of the most pressing issues in our time today. It demands solutions that are grounded in economic reality and informed by the experience of those who build, finance, and manage housing. Unfortunately, this bill does not meet that standard. It does not improve affordability. It does not increase supply. It introduces uncertainty that may discourage investment, and in doing so, it risks making the problem it seeks to address even more acute. For these reasons, this government continues to miss the mark with this bill in its current form. Manitobans deserve policies that will increase the availability of housing, stabilize rents, and ensure that everyone has access to a place they can afford to call home.
Are there any other members who wish to speak to debate? Seeing none, is the House ready for the question? The question before the House is second reading of Bill number 13, the Residential Tenancies Amendment Act. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? I heard a no. The honourable member for Agassiz.
Sorry, I may be premature. I was going to say on division.
Okay. The motion is accordingly passed on division. The next matter before the House is Bill 15, the Consumer Protection Amendment Act. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. I move, seconded by the Minister of Agriculture, that Bill 15, the Consumer Protection Amendment Act, be now read a second time and be referred to the committee of this House.
It has been moved by the Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery, seconded by the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, that Bill 15, the Consumer Protection Amendment Act, be now read a second time and be referred to a committee of this House. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Many consumer products have become harder to fix and maintain. Repairs today often require specialized tools, difficult to obtain parts, and access to software and information such as manual. Right to repair legislation give consumer greater choices and information on the repair option for the product they buy. This will introduce requirement for a seller or manufacturer of the designated consumer good to provide the buyer with the parts, tools, software, and manuals necessary to maintain or repair the goods. It will also require that a seller or manufacturer make such means of repair available for a reasonable period of time after the sale, at a reasonable price and within a reasonable time period after the buyer makes the request. The amendments also include numerous regulation-making powers, including designating goods or class of manufacturer's goods, prescribing means of repair and remedies that a seller or manufacturer must provide for failing to comply. This will include designating consumer good to be included under the legislation, beginning with household appliances, government look forward to engaging with the industry and consumer stakeholders on these matters. Manitoba would be second province in Canada after Quebec to introduce right to repair legislation aimed at protecting consumers. These amendments also align Manitoba with the federal government, which in 2024 enacted a legislation to address the right to repair through the changes to the Copyright Act, permitting the circumvention of software locks for the sole purpose of diagnosing, maintaining, or repairing product. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Assistant Deputy Speaker.
A question period of up to 15 minutes will be held. Questions may be addressed in the standard rotation, and no question or answer shall exceed 45 seconds. The floor is open for questions. The Honourable Member for Borderland.
Can the government provide a complete list of designated consumer goods that will be covered under Bill 15?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Assistant Deputy Speaker. We are starting with a household appliances first, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. From there on, we will move second phase to the auto industry, and the third phase will be the agriculture industry. Thank you, Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, it's many times been discussed and debated about the right to repair for farm equipment as modern farm equipment has become much more technologically dependent. Does this bill include modern farm equipment? And could the minister explain?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Yes, this will include, as I said earlier, we are starting this with the household appliances, then it will be auto industry, then it's going to be manufacturing, and we will bring the regulations in, and we will be consulting with the industry as well. This is an important bill where right now, sometimes you have no other option other than just going to the dealership to get something fixed. So we are making more choices available for the consumers. This is also will be directly related to affordability as well, Assistant Deputy Speaker.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Borderland.
Thank you. I'm wondering how the government will ensure that replacement parts and repair tools are actually available in rural communities and smaller towns.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. I want to thank the member for that question. I think members are really aware of especially the agriculture industry because he came from the agriculture industry there. So they have more knowledge pretty much on this. Even they don't have to read the bill on this one pretty much, and they know the issues that agriculture industry is facing with the machinery and everything. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, we will be talking with the stakeholders and as well as with the industry as well to make sure the parts that people are required are available wherever they are, they might have to ship.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. As we've seen as recently as a few weeks ago, major litigation in the United States around the right to repair and manufacturers paying large fines for legislation that's been tried to be forced onto the manufacturers. So my question for the minister is which dealer representation for manufacturers has he met with, or which manufacturers, which industries have been consulted with this bill?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. People have reached out to our office. We are in regular communication with the industry. Recently, we have a discussion with the Retail Council of Canada, where we have folks from Apple, Home Depot, Walmart, and many big industry. There were around 17 manufacturers were represented on that one. We will continue to listen. I also want to thank our member from Elmwood. Actually, he was the one brought so many times this legislation, and the opposition never, the government at that time never passed it. So here we are listening to the member from Elmwood and making sure that people have the choices where they want to repair their goods. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The member for Borderland.
What enforcement mechanisms will be in place if suppliers fail to provide repair resources in a timely manner?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Thank you to the member for that question. Yes, we will be consulting with the industry. We will be consulting with the stakeholders on this. And as we develop the regulations and want to make sure the products are available for reasonable times and the repair parts are also available, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. This is, again, as affordability measures, we want to make sure the consumers have the choice wherever they want to fix their parts. Right now, most of the times, all you have to do is, there's no other choice than just going to the dealership. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, and maybe in my next answer, I'll probably share my own personal experience in this. Thank you.
The member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member from Elmwood for his experience on a bill exactly like this, because it's been a number of times that he's brought forward legislation around the right to repair. And we've met with industry that has discussed the cost that this brings to our Manitoba public insurance system. And it's mounting to millions upon millions of additional costs to the Crown Corporation. So with automotive repair, how soon of a timeline can we see? And have they consulted with Manitoba Public Insurance on the effect to our Crown Corporation that this would have? What is the effect that this will have in the immediate to our Crown Corporation?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. The question is exactly where I was going with my answer. As I said, I'll go to my next answer. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, recently my truck broke down and wouldn't move, wouldn't start. Towed it over to a garage and was sitting there for a couple of days. They said, sorry, can't fix it. You have to take it to the dealership. The software that required to know exactly what's wrong with the truck is not we don't have it. So this is, again, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, we want to make sure those softwares are available for the garages that they want to have it. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, this is also where now at the dealership, I have to pay extra cost, where instead
Member's
of fixing
time is
it at the
expired. The member for Borderland.
The minister talked about a reasonable time. It's a phrase used in the bill. I wonder how he defines reasonable time for repair resources. Of course, the concern is without clear standards that small businesses and farmers will be impacted. I wonder if the minister can define reasonable time.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. As I said, reasonable times, yes. And as I said, we are developing the regulation with the industry and the stakeholders. That's where the reasonable times will come into play, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. I'm sure I will maybe asking the member to maybe give us input because the member being from the farming community, maybe he has some more ideas how to make that a reasonable time frame. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, I'm sure I'll ask a member from Laboratory as well to help us in this, give their feedback on this. And also a member from Elmwood also will be providing very, very good feedback on this as well. Thank you, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'd like to ask the Minister how they would potentially mitigate the additional costs and effects that this could have on the consumer, because this, at the end of the day, is for the consumer. But we do know from litigation that we've seen in the United States in far larger markets that putting legislation and requirements against large manufacturers could just limit their activity in our market. So when we look at John Deere, Ford Motor Company, those manufacturers, how can we ensure that this isn't going to affect competition and also availability of products in our marketplace?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. On the one hand, member want to make sure the parts are available for the farming community when they want to repair their parts. And then on the other hand, he's saying, no, sorry, we don't want those parts to be available. So I don't know which side he want the going. Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker, yes, we will be talking to the manufacturers to give us their input as well. And as well as the stakeholders we will be talking to. It's gonna be going on. Once we develop those regulations, we will gonna know exactly how we will have proceeded with this, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. This is where the bill is gonna help the regular folks here in Manitoba. With the cost of everything is going up, Honorable Assistant Deputy
Member's
Speaker.
time has expired. The Honourable Member for Borderland.
I also want to echo my colleague, the member for La Vérendrye, in thanking the MLA for Elmwood on his work on the right to repair issue. The right to repair concept is an important one, but the legislation that he brought forward in previous sessions included definitions for designated consumer goods. I'm wondering why Bill 15 does not.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Yes, this is about protecting the consumers here in Manitoba, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. And we will continue to listen to Manitobans on this, and we will definitely discuss with the manufacturer on this. Where recently we had a discussion with the Retail Council of Canada. There were like over 17 different companies were represented, and we have a really, really good discussion on this one, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. And we will continue to ask those people to provide us the feedback as well our stakeholder here in Manitoba. Thank you, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'd just like to clarify that the Minister has just in my last question noted that they would like to consult with industry organizations, and even extended that they might consult with myself and my colleague. So I'm just unsure, and I'd like some clarification why they haven't consulted with the industry organizations as well as those different manufacturers specific prior to drafting this legislation and bringing it forward. Why would these discussions happen after to create the rest of what actually would be included in a normally drafted bill?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. This is the difference between Conservative and the NDP on this side, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. We are out in the public, listening to the public every single day, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Where they are not out in the public, they don't want to listen to the people, and they don't want to listen to their concern, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. This is where I said we will consult with them when we develop the regulation, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Again, we will continue to listen to Manitobans. Unlike opposition, they don't want to listen to Manitobans. Thank you, Honorable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The member for Borderland.
Well, it sounds like from the minister's answers that this is all really just an exercise in futility then this afternoon, that we're going to pass this bill, the opposition is expected to support it, and we're going to pass it, and then the minister and his department are going to write the regulations and conduct the consultation after the fact. And that's obviously a big concern as a legislator and something I think that would concern many Manitobans. I'll try this question. I wonder how the government plans to update the list of designated consumer goods as technology evolves, especially in agriculture and the small business sectors.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. I want to thank the member for that question. Yes, invitation is open to the opposition as well to give us their feedback on this bill. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, I'm sure the member from Elmwood will be on my side, providing me a guidance on this bill as well. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, and our government is a listening government. We will continue to listen to Manitobans, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, and we will not like opposition, not go out into the public and not to listen to them. But on this side, the House Premier has given us special instruction. Don't sit in this office, go into the public and listen to them. Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The time for question periods has expired. The floor is now open for debate. The Honourable Member for Borderland.
Bill 15 amends the Consumer Protection Act to require suppliers of designated consumer goods to provide what is defined as the means of repair, including diagnostic repair, repair manuals, replacement parts, and specialized tools for a reasonable period of time at a reasonable cost and within a reasonable time frame upon request. It further allows for exemptions to be created by regulation and requires that those exemptions be disclosed prior to sale. On its face, this is an attempt to respond to a growing concern among consumers, farmers, and small businesses that they are increasingly unable to repair the products that they own. The concern that underpins right to repair legislation is real, and it's been building for decades. The modern economy has seen the rise of what many refer to as planned obsolescence, where products are designed in ways that limit their lifespan, restrict access to repair, or render them uneconomical to fix even when the physical components remain largely functional. This phenomenon affects everything from consumer electronics to agricultural machinery, and it places a recurring financial burden on Manitobans who are forced to replace rather than repair. The response to this issue has not been limited to Manitoba, nor is it a new concept. There is a long and well-documented history of right to repair efforts across North America. In the United States, numerous states have introduced or enacted right to repair legislation in various forms, covering sectors such as electronics, automotive equipment, and agricultural machinery. Some jurisdictions have achieved meaningful progress, while others have encountered significant challenges related to enforcement, scope, and unintended consequences. The legislative landscape is varied, and it provides a wealth of lessons for those willing to examine it carefully. We're also seeing the movement across Canada. Other provinces have introduced or passed right to repair legislation or related measures aimed at improving access to parts, tools, and diagnostic information. In some cases, these efforts have advanced through amendments to consumer protection statutes or sector-specific frameworks, while in others, they have stalled due to unresolved concerns about scope, enforcement, and industry impact. It is worth noting that Prince Edward Island introduced right to repair legislation that did not ultimately pass it, which underscores the importance of getting the details right before proceeding. These provincial experiences provide valuable lessons, and they reinforce the need for clarity, consultation, and precision in Manitoba's approach. And that is precisely where the concern with Bill 15 arises. This PC team has been engaged on this issue for a considerable period of time. We've consulted with consumer electronics groups, with independent repair businesses, with automotive stakeholders, and with representatives from the agricultural sector, including both producers and equipment dealers. And that's more than can be said for the members opposite, the minister opposite as well, who apparently hasn't done any consultation yet. These consultations by our team were not undertaken lightly, and they were not undertaken simply recently. They reflect years of engagement with stakeholders who are directly affected by the challenges this bill tries to address. What we have heard consistently from those stakeholders is that right to repair legislation must be carefully crafted. It must clearly define which goods are covered. It must establish precise standards for what constitutes a reasonable time and a reasonable price. It must account for the complexity of modern equipment, particularly in sectors such as agriculture, where machinery relies on sophisticated software and integrated systems. It must balance access to repair with legitimate concerns about safety, security, and intellectual property. Bill 15 does not provide that level of clarity. The legislation relies heavily on future regulations to define the scope of its application, including which consumer goods will be designated. It does not provide a list of those goods within the statute itself. It does not define what constitutes a reasonable time period or a reasonable amount for the provision of repair service resources. These are not minor details. These are the central elements that will determine whether the law is effective or merely symbolic. And again, disappointing that when asked about these matters, the minister had no answer. The absence of these definitions creates uncertainty for consumers, for small businesses, and for the very sectors that this legislation is intended to support. A farmer considering whether they will be able to repair a modern tractor cannot rely on a promise of future regulations. An independent repair shop cannot build a business model around undefined standards. A consumer cannot assess their rights when those rights are contingent on terms that have yet to be established. The concerns raised by stakeholders during our consultations are not theoretical. They are reflected directly in the structure of this bill. Consumer electronics groups have raised concerns about access to proprietary software and the risk of creating obligations that cannot be practically fulfilled. Automotive stakeholders have highlighted the importance of maintaining safety and security systems while enabling repair. Agricultural producers have emphasized the critical need for timely access to repair resources during peak seasons, where delays can have significant economic consequences. Equipment dealers have pointed to the complexity of modern machinery and the need for clarity in how repair obligations are defined and enforced. These are serious concerns, and they require serious consideration. It's troubling that this legislation appears to have been brought forward without addressing any of the very issues that stakeholders have identified over the course of years. The bill, as drafted, contains the same gaps and uncertainties that have been raised repeatedly by those who will be most affected by it. And that raises legitimate questions about the extent of consultation going to be undertaken by the government in developing this legislation. Affordability is a central concern for Manitobans, and it is one that this government likes to reference. Right to repair legislation has the potential to contribute to affordability by allowing consumers to extend the life of their products and avoid the cost of replacement. But that potential is not realized simply by passing a law. It is realized through the details of how that law is structured and implemented. Bill 15 in its current form does not provide a clear pathway to improved affordability. The reliance on undefined terms such as reasonable time and reasonable price creates ambiguity that may ultimately limit the effectiveness of this legislation. The absence of a defined list of covered goods creates uncertainty about who will benefit and to what extent. The broad regulatory powers granted to the Lieutenant Governor and Council allow for significant variation in how the law is applied, which may further complicate its impact. There is also a need to consider how this legislation will function in practice. Enforcement mechanisms must be clear and effective. Remedies for non-compliance must be accessible and meaningful. The availability of repair resources must be consistent across urban and rural areas. These are practical considerations that determine whether a law achieves its intended purpose. This PC team supports the principle of right to repair. We support the idea that consumers, farmers, and small business owners should have the ability to maintain and repair the products they rely on. We support the strengthening of local repair industries and the retention of skilled jobs in our communities. We recognize the role that right to repair legislation can play in addressing the issue of planned obsolescence and reducing unnecessary waste. However, support for the principle does not equate to support for flawed legislation. It requires that the legislation be refined, clarified, and strengthened to ensure that it delivers on its promise. And that is why we on this side of the House are looking forward to the committee stage of this bill. The committee provides an opportunity to hear directly from Manitobans, including the stakeholders who have been engaged on this issue for many years. It provides an opportunity to identify the gaps in this legislation and to propose amendments that address those gaps, as well as an opportunity to ensure that the final product reflects the input of those who will be most affected by it. I fully expect that there will be numerous suggestions for amendments, and I encourage the government to approach that process with an open mind. This is not an issue that benefits from rigidity. It requires collaboration, careful consideration, and a willingness to incorporate the expertise of those who understand the practical realities of repair, manufacturing, and service. And I would also encourage the Minister to extend an invitation to Mr. Willie Cade to appear before committee. Mr. Cade is widely recognized as an advocate for right to repair. He has extensive experience working with jurisdictions that have implemented such legislation. His insights would be valuable to this House as we seek to ensure that Manitoba's approach is informed by best practices and avoids the pitfalls that others have encountered. So in closing, Bill 15 addresses an important issue, but it does so in a manner that clearly requires further work. The principle of right to repair is sound. The need to address planned obsolescence is clear. The opportunity to improve affordability is real. However, the legislation before us does not meet those standards required to achieve those objectives. And so we stand ready. As a PC team, we stand ready to engage constructively in the process of improving this bill. We stand ready to listen to Manitobans, and we stand ready to ensure that when this House acts on right to repair, that it does so in a way that is clear, effective, and truly beneficial to the people of this province. Thank you.
Are there any other members who wish to speak in debate? Seeing none, is the House ready for the question? The question before the House is second reading of Bill 15, the Consumer Protection Amendment Act. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed, and so ordered. The motion is accordingly passed. The next order of business on the agenda is Bill 48, the Real Property Amendment and Planning Amendment Act, land conveyed for public purposes. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. I move, second by Minister of Environment and Climate Change, that the Bill number 48, the Real Property Amendment and Planning Amendment Act, land conveyed for public purpose, be now read a second time and be referred to a committee of this House.
Moved by the Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery, seconded by the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change, that Bill number 48, the Real Property Amendment and Planning Amendment Act, land conveyed for public purposes, be now read a second time and be referred to a committee of this House. The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. These amendments will allow statutory easement to continue on a title for land designated as a public reserve and allow new statutory easement to be registered after registration of a plan of subdivision. Bill 48 will also give authority to grant statutory easement over land shown as a public reserve on plans of subdivision. A public reserve is a common green space in a residential development, such as park, playground, retention pond, pathway, or protected environment space. Right now, the public cannot check for most easement location on a public reserve, which causes issue for developers, utility companies, and for the general public. Bill 48 will make it easier and less time-consuming to locate and serve gas, water, or internet lines. It will also reduce costs for extending utility services through public reserve. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
A question period of up to 15 minutes will be held. Questions may be addressed in the standard rotation, and no question or answer shall exceed 45 seconds. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. What specific problem is this legislation trying to solve that cannot already be addressed under existing law?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, easy way to explain is not going to nitty and gritty things. You have a playground structure or playground where if somebody want to have the internet or a hydro line under those go through the park is not currently allowed. It's have to go over the land. So this is where it's gonna make it easier for the companies, Manitoba Hydro, and also whoever is developing that subdivision to have a easier access on this. Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Agassiz.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. I would like the Minister to share with us here in the Chamber what consultation was done with municipalities before introducing these changes here.
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. We have an extended consultation on this with the City of Winnipeg, AMM, and also the Indigenous communities on this, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. And they were the one who suggested to bring this bill forward. And this bill was in the development for almost over 3 years, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. After consulting with the City of Winnipeg, AMM, and Indigenous communities, we brought this bill forward. Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Just another question about municipalities. How will this bill affect long-term municipal planning and zoning certainty?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. This was the ask from the municipalities to bring this bill forward. As I said, this is not a 1 week, 2 week consultation. This is and was in the development for almost 3 years. This bill, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, we consulted with the City of Winnipeg, AMM. So all the municipalities are represented at AMM, and this was their ask to bring this bill forward. So this is gonna make it easier to locate these lines, as well also have an easier will make it less expensive for people to develop the land for the subdivisions that they want to develop.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, what safeguards will be in place to ensure that these new powers are not used inconsistently across municipalities and in Indigenous communities?
Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, this was the ask from the municipalities, and as I said, we have a very robust consultation on this, and they are all in favor of this, and this is their ask, the municipalities ask, and this is EMM's ask that we need this bill. And this is, and again, public will kind of know exactly where those lines are, and also it's internet lines, sewers, and it's easier to locate with this bill. Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The honourable member for Agassiz.
Thank you. I'm wondering if the minister can share with us here what role, if any, will the provincial government have in approving disputes over these land designations?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Again, as I said, this is related to a utilities passing through public land. So this is, again, a City of Winnipeg were asking for this, and this was EMM was asking for this, and we have a very robust conversation with the municipalities and as well as Indigenous communities, and I want to make sure that the ask from those from EMM and City of Winnipeg are delivered, so where we will kind of know exactly where the lines are, and if people
Member's time has expired. The member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I know that you've repeated several times that you were asked to do this by municipal government and by the City of Winnipeg, but my question is, how can we ensure that public lands are still being used responsibly, even though they've asked for this and you're saying, yes, we'll do this for you? How are you going to ensure that that's being done responsibly?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, we all know municipalities are responsible and they will definitely follow the rules and the regulations that there are. And this is, again, public parks, public recreation areas, natural areas, planted buffers, airstrips, and public works such as detention ponds are covered in this. And we will, again, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, continue to discuss this with the City of Winnipeg, EMM, and Indigenous communities on this. Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
Before acknowledging the next speaker, just a gentle reminder for questions to go through the chair, please. The member for Riding Mountain.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The Minister's Department told the Association of Manitoba Municipalities that this bill will speed up development. How much faster does the Minister anticipate development taking place across the province?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, again, the member know that municipalities have said that this will kind of fast those developments that there are. Again, as I said earlier, simple way of putting it is why is it costing more right now to develop a subdivision is because 10% of the subdivision that they have to protect for a public land, and that's where right now those utilities have to go around it and they cannot go underneath it. And we are making those ones available for developers to have those lines under the public land so that they can have a access.
Member's time has expired. The member for Agassiz.
Can the minister tell us here today, how will this bill impact the use of parks and other green space in urban areas, rural areas, and First Nation communities?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, as I said, this is will not kind of have a, public will still have the access to the parks, and they will not be restricted that you cannot use the parks because we have the lines going underneath it. Is an internet line going through the park, or again, as I said, we have a consultation done with the municipalities, with EMM, indigenous communities, and this is also not infringent, or like it's indigenous communities land will not be covered under this, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, where they have the line, where they have the rights to the land. Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker. Question is, could this bill unintentionally restrict development in designated public lands? Is there anything that could happen in any scenarios that could affect and cause this to be a problem rather than a help for municipalities?
Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, I don't see any issues with this where it can have issues of having a development. This is again, every subdivision have a 10% protected land for public use, and this is where we are making those land where they can use those lines under the land, and that again is going to cost less for the developers, and in return it's going to cost less for someone to buy that land or to build a new house on that land. So this is where also a affordability, where we are helping with affordability. Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The member for Riding Mountain.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, can the minister tell this House what legal ambiguity currently exists in the Real Property Act that necessitates this amendment?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, and thank you for that member for asking me the question. Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, the member was really in support of this bill. Looks like today he doesn't want to support this bill, and while sitting, and he actually thanked me for bringing this bill forward, and where today looks like he doesn't want to support this bill. So hopefully he will support this bill. Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
The member for Agassiz.
Can the member tell us how many cases in Manitoba have involved disputes over easements on land set aside for public purposes in the last 10 years?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service Delivery.
Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, as I said, this bill is brought forward because the municipalities were looking for this kind of bill, and this is again, we are helping with the affordability. It's gonna cost less to develop a subdivision. In return, when people build their houses, it's gonna cost them less. So again, we are here we are listening to Manitobans, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker, also listening to the municipalities where the Conservative didn't want to even sit down with the mayor of City of Winnipeg. Thank you, Honourable Assistant Deputy Speaker.
Seeing no further questions, or are there any other further questions? The floor is now open for debate. The member for Riding Mountain.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I rise today to speak to Bill 48, the Real Property Amendment and Planning Amendment Act. At its core, Bill 48 proposes targeted amendments to the Real Property Act and the Planning Act. These changes are technical in nature, but they carry practical implications for municipalities, developers, and communities across Manitoba. Specifically, the bill clarifies the use of land reserved for public purposes and introduces provisions allowing statutory easements to be granted over such lands to eligible entities. It also expands the definition of permitted uses to include works of municipalities, which is intended to facilitate infrastructure development and provide additional clarity to municipal governments. Let me begin by acknowledging that there is merit in clarifying legislation where ambiguity exists. Municipal governments often face delays and complications when statutory frameworks are unclear, outdated, or inconsistent. In that sense, efforts to streamline processes and remove unnecessary red tape can be beneficial, particularly in a province where infrastructure needs continue to grow and where timely project delivery is critical to economic development and quality of life. Municipalities are on the front lines of service delivery. They manage roads, water systems, drainage, recreation facilities, and other essential infrastructure that Manitobans rely on every day. If Bill 48 helps municipalities move more efficiently in planning and executing these responsibilities, then that is a positive step. The addition of works of municipalities as a permitted use of public reserve land may provide needed flexibility, particularly in smaller or rapidly growing communities where land availability can be constrained and options may be limited. Similarly, the introduction of statutory easements over public reserve lands, once registered, could offer a clearer legal framework for infrastructure projects such as utilities, pipelines, or drainage systems. By ensuring that these easements are formally recognized and legally binding, the legislation may reduce uncertainty, improve coordination among stakeholders, and minimize the risk of disputes or delays. However, while the administrative intent of the bill is understandable, it is equally important that we examine its broader implications. Public reserve lands are not simply parcels of land waiting for development. They are often set aside for specific community purposes: green spaces, recreational areas, buffers, and other uses that contribute to the well-being of residents and the character of neighborhoods. One of the cautionary aspects of Bill 48 is that it could, in practice, allow for these lands to be repurposed more easily. While the bill does not explicitly remove protections, it does expand the range of permissible uses without clearly defining limits or criteria. This raises important questions about how decisions will be made, who will be consulted, and what safeguards will be in place to ensure that public interests are preserved. Communities place significant value on green space and public reserves. These areas provide environmental benefits, support mental and physical health, and contribute to the overall livability of neighborhoods. They are also important for long-term sustainability, particularly as communities grow and urbanize. Any legislative change that affects how these lands can be used should be approached with careful consideration, transparency, and respect for local priorities. It is also worth noting that the bill enables various authorities, including municipalities, the province, and the Crown, to grant statutory easements over public reserve land. While this flexibility may be useful, it also underscores the need for clear guidelines and accountability. Without consistent standards, there is a risk of uneven application across jurisdictions, which could lead to confusion, inconsistency, or unintended consequences over time. From a financial perspective, the bill appears to have minimal direct administrative costs. That is not unusual for legislation of this nature. However, the indirect implications, such as the potential for accelerated development or changes in land use, could have longer-term impacts that are more difficult to quantify. These include effects on municipal planning processes, environmental considerations, infrastructure maintenance, and community engagement. In reviewing this legislation, it is also important to consider the broader context. Municipalities across Manitoba are facing increasing pressures from population growth in some areas to infrastructure deficits in others. They are being asked to do more, often with limited resources and rising costs. In that environment, any measure that genuinely supports efficient service delivery is welcome. But efficiency must always be balanced with responsibility and foresight. As opposition members, our role is not simply to support or oppose legislation outright, but to ensure that it is thoroughly examined and improved where necessary. In the case of Bill 48, there are several questions that merit further discussion and clarification as the bill proceeds through the legislative process. For instance, what mechanisms will be in place to ensure that the use of public reserve land for municipal works does not come at the expense of community needs? Will there be requirements for public consultation before such lands are repurposed or encumbered by easements? How will the government monitor and report on the use of statutory easements granted under this new framework? Additionally, how does the government intend to define and regulate eligible grantees in practice? While the bill references existing definitions in the Real Property Act, it would be helpful to understand how these entities will be evaluated and what criteria they must meet to access easements over public lands. Clarity in this area will be important to ensure fairness, transparency, and public confidence. Another consideration is the potential cumulative impact of these changes. While a single easement or project may seem minor in isolation, multiple decisions over time could significantly alter the character and availability of public reserve lands within a community. This underscores the importance of strategic planning, coordination, and oversight at both the municipal and provincial levels. I would also note that the government has indicated that this bill is intended to speed up development. While that may be a worthwhile goal, it is not in itself a sufficient justification. Development should be guided by thoughtful planning, community input, and long-term sustainability. Speed should not come at the expense of due diligence, nor should it override the interests of residents who rely on these shared public spaces. It will be important to understand how this legislation aligns with community needs and priorities. Some municipalities may welcome the added flexibility and clarity, while others may have concerns about the potential implications or unintended consequences. Their perspective should inform how this bill is implemented and, if necessary, amended in the future. It is also an appropriate moment to reflect on infrastructure needs across the province. There are many communities that are in urgent need of investment. Roads, water systems, flood protection, and community facilities all require attention. Legislative changes alone will not address these challenges. They must be accompanied by adequate funding, planning, and sustained support. In that regard, Bill 48 can be seen as one piece of a larger puzzle. It may help remove certain procedural barriers, but it does not replace the need for comprehensive infrastructure strategies or long-term investment. As we consider this legislation, we should keep in mind the broader picture and ensure that it complements rather than substitutes for meaningful action. To conclude, Honourable Speaker, Bill 48 is an administrative bill with practical implications. It should seek to clarify existing legislation, provide flexibility for municipalities, and facilitate infrastructure development. These are reasonable objectives, and there are elements of the bill that warrant cautious support. At the same time, the legislation raises important questions about the use and protection of public reserve lands. It highlights the need for clear guidelines, transparency, and accountability. It also underscores the importance of balancing efficiency with community interests, environmental stewardship, and long-term planning. As this bill moves forward, I encourage the government to engage openly with municipalities, stakeholders, and all Manitobans.
Like they've always been doing.
By doing so, we can ensure that the legislation achieves its intended goals while safeguarding the public assets that communities rely on and preserving trust in the decisions that affect them. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Seeing no other speakers, is the House ready for the question? So the question before the House is second reading of Bill 48, the Real Property Amendment and Planning Amendment Act, land conveyed for public purposes. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed and so ordered. The motion is accordingly passed. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Is it the will of the House to call at 5 p.m.?
Is it the will of the House to call at 5 p.m.? Agreed and so ordered. The hour being 5 p.m., this House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.